Did you miss your deadline to renew your Medicaid coverage? You can still send your completed annual review form to Healthy Connections Medicaid. You may be assigned to another health plan, but you can ask to come back to First Choice within 60 days of renewed Medicaid eligibility. It's your family. It's your choice. First Choice is the right choice. Renew and choose us. Visit selecthealthofsc.com/renew to learn more.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Join us as we seek the truth and travel the long road to justice. What's up, Alibiers? Gigi here. Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. Fruit Loop. What you know?
Did you know that international astronauts must be able to speak Russian?
Wow.
I was like, what? So if as the International Space Station has modules and operations in Russian, all astronauts going to the ISS must know how to speak Russian. And astronauts have claimed that that's the hardest part and the biggest challenge of their training.
I bet. It's hard to learn a foreign language. You know how we did in Spanish Fruit Loop.
Oh, I know, right?
Yeah,
I took French.
Dude, by the way, we got called out on YouTube. Somebody said we totally butchered Spanish names and said, obviously, we don't have any friends that are Spanish. And so I responded back, yeah, we do. We just failed Spanish.
Yeah. I failed French, but.
I mean, it's never, look, when we butcher names or whatever, it is never intentional. It's never disrespectful. If you've been with us long enough, it's what we do.
Yep.
We Southern.
Yeah,
we say it like we say it. I don't even know if I'm saying Hermosillo right. Is it Hermosillo or Hermosillo?
No, I think it's Hermosillo, I think.
See, now they got me questioning everything. All right. So right out of the gate, there's been some filings by Jim Archibald today that have got people a little bit nervous.
Uh-oh.
So I got this. I knew about this a few hours ago. I saw it in the portal, but was waiting on the paperwork to drop. But essentially, I'm taking this from Justin Lum's Facebook and Twitter. Go follow him if you don't. Number one, he filed it says to incorporate federal and state constitutional grounds in support of future motions or objections. And number two, to remand to grand jury for further proceedings. So this first motion is really just kind of casting, as Justin said, casting a wide net to cover federal and state constitutional rights for later on. If Lori is convicted, her lawyers will appeal, and this is normal in a really serious case like this. So that first one, not so much worrisome. The second motion, Archibald refers to two charges against Lori: the conspiracy to commit murder and the grand theft. He wants the court to clarify these charges and their connections. He may potentially be trying to get the case thrown out or revised, but the prosecution is going to fight this. And look, if it goes back to a grand jury, she's getting re-indicted.
Yeah, exactly.
So Justin said that also on his Twitter that he has been told that Archibald is being very vigorous in his training, Lord have mercy, in his defense of her. So we shall see what happens with
Don't panic.
Yeah, guys, don't panic. She ain't going nowhere.
No, she's still in the clink.
Yep. All right. So what we've talked about is sometimes we're going to go back in time on this mega series as new information comes that kind of fits earlier in the timeline. And sometimes we're going to jump forward. So into tonight's episode, what I've decided to do is to put out some interviews with Christina, Serena, Zulema, Melanie Gibb after Lori and Chad were both arrested. because they come in the story later, but it's not really clear their roles or what they knew and all that stuff. So we thought it would be better to just go ahead and kind of do their interviews first to give backstory on them or to summarize what they know. So Fruit Loop, why don't you start?
Okay, so back in time, we're going through some random things in the early days. At first, remember the first meeting Chad had with Lori, he told her that they'd been married in a past life. I don't know about you, but if somebody did that to me, I would probably hightail it the other way.
You ain't kidding.
For real. So Gibbs said from the beginning he was more talking to individuals, and Lori would tell them what Chad would say to her. At first, she thought it was different with Lori and Chad. It was a new concept to her, and she's open to new beliefs. But she never believed it 100%.
You notice in a lot of her taped police interviews, she really tries to downplay how involved and how much she believed in this. Because it's embarrassing, I'm sure, when you're sitting there with investigators and
Yeah, and
you know.
especially if you know now what she knows, you
Mhm.
know kind of where it led to. So
Right.
and if anybody read the text between Lori and Zulema, they would be like, "Oh my goodness,
Right.
what the world?" So November 16th, the event in Mesa, Arizona. She said Chad was one of the speakers. Jason Mao, Hector. Then they beep out the audio, and it's silent where she names the other speakers. We've seen that flyer though, I think.
Yeah, I found it today. I'll put it out there.
Yeah. He was selling his books. There were, sorry. They were there for 2 to 3 days, and Lori talked to Chad a lot. She asked a lot of questions and was interested in what he thought. So they started talking about these fringe beliefs and developed a connection. She said it was discussing things you don't talk about at church. She and Lori knew Chad was married. Tammy never came to the events. The investigator plays a clip from the event and asks her if it sounds familiar. You can hear Chad speaking and thanking Thor. Remember, we were like, Thor, he's a Marvel guy, right? So Melanie says that speech was in Mesa the weekend of November 16th, 2018, because Thor was in attendance and spoke at that one and not in St. George. She said this meeting was the second time Lori and Chad had met that she knew of.
Right. And so investigators recite the last four of Gibbs' cell phone number and ask how long she had that phone. And she said, around 5 or 6 years before she met Lori. And Lori has that number in one account as Melanie and another account as Phoebe. Melanie says that doesn't surprise her. That's what she liked to call her. She said Lori got to a point to where she was much more secretive also with her life. And when asked why she would call her Phoebe, Gibb explains Chad would tell her about her other lives. And in one of those lives, she had a bunch of children. And one of those children was Phoebe, which is Melanie. And Melanie said, just for the record, I don't believe that. The investigator plays a clip of Lori talking, which is recorded at Melanie's house, and there were other people there. We're very familiar with this. This is where Lori's talking about Joe Ryan, and you hear Lori say that Joe got the judges to believe him. Then she says she was going to murder him to make it stop. She went through all these scriptures and says, if he comes against you once, twice, 3 times, you can kill him. Gibbs said she remembers Lori saying this when they asked her if she did. And Gibb also said that this recording was before Lori met Chad. And so the investigator asked if it was in October, and Gibb said she had the recordings on her phone. So she scrolls through and she has 2 dates, and she thinks that this particular recording was October 12th or the 19th of 2018, where she's talking about Joe Ryan. And Melanie Gibbs says, you probably have those recordings. And she says she gave it to Elder. And then she stops herself and laughs. And then she says, officer.
Oh, wow. So in Zulema's interview about the November 16th and 17th Mesa event, she told investigators in October of 2020, out of the group, she met Gibb first. During the intermission, Zulema spoke with Chad because she had questions, and we know because she texted him 9 million times. During this time, Lori approached Zulema and said Charles had taken JJ out of town, and Lori was able to have people over from the conference to stay at her house, including Chad, and she was invited. Chad also invited Zulema and told her he would give her a blessing. That night is when she would first meet Alex. Lori secretly invited Zulema into a bedroom, and this is when Chad gave Zulema her blessing. It's just weird. Zulema said this was the first weaving of their web. Investigators asked about the difference from this blessing compared to others she had gotten. She said she always had vision dreams from the time she was a child. As a kid, she didn't understand them, but as she got older, she realized the dreams were warnings and things that were going to happen in the future. She said this is why she was so interested in Chad, because he had visions and dreams too. She said during Chad's blessing to her, she had a vision while wide awake where she saw the entire Phoenix Valley deserted with abandoned buildings and overgrown vegetation, and saw a white building that appeared to be a temple. After the blessing, Zulema told Chad about the white building, and Lori claimed she saw the same thing.
It's a miracle.
Yeah. Later that evening, they all were in Lori's living room. Zulema and then somebody else was there. They redacted that. Serena and Lori sat on the couch, and Chad sat on the coffee table to give instruction to them. He told them he had information on translation, and Lori asked Chad to teach them.
So he says that translation are 3 different steps. You have physical, emotional, and spiritual. He gave a scoring system for this transformation and said he could tell how people are progressing. He also said that he had a place in his house that was a portal of information for him. He would go to the portal and get revelations. I'm sorry, my phone's blowing up, and I thought I had my texts off. Well, I didn't lost my place. Oh, he would go to the portal and get revelations and information because he was closely working with spiritual beings to usher in the second coming of Christ. Dude, did he just go sit in his closet or something? Like, I can't even picture this.
I don't know either.
No wonder Tammy played Frontierville all the time. He was in his portal.
Yeah.
Zulema believed Chad because of how he presented his information, saying he was soft-spoken and humble. And Zulema said that Chad told her she was an advanced person and had amazing gifts that were given to her for a reason. He said she had a mission to complete and would be a great part of work of the Lord. You know, you think about it, you take people that are vulnerable and you tell them they've got all these amazing gifts, and then they eat it up, and you see kind of how they got as many people to believe in this hogwash as they did. So Christina, this is her interview from April 15th of 2020, and she's interviewed at her home, and she knew Lori for around 7 years. She also has a sister who lives in Salem, Idaho, who went to the same church as Chad and Tammy, and she had met Chad casually while visiting her sister. So sometime in June, Christina talks to Lori on the phone and says she's concerned about some of the things Lori talked about. I'm assuming this is June 2019, right before Charles was murdered. She met with Lori and Alex around June, and the way he was talking wasn't appropriate. Christina's husband said Christina had met up with Lori and Alex for religious discussions, and it got in the realm of rude. When asked if she ever heard Lori talk about religion outside of the LDS phase, she said that is exactly what happened. And she said it got weird when she talked about Charles not being her husband and said he was possessed. Remember, Christina turns dark, of course.
Of course. And whenever you go against them, you're dark.
Yep.
She said Alex made a statement, Charles needs to die, and that made Christina uncomfortable. The conversation took place at Zulema's house. A day or two after the meeting, she followed up with Lori by text and said they needed to talk. They met at Alex's house. She told Lori she couldn't be casual with stuff like that in that context. Christina said Lori told her she and Alex were both super dramatic and they didn't mean anything by it. Christina said if something were to happen to Charles, she would feel the need to go to the police. And Christina said, again, she told Lori it was not okay. Lori said they didn't mean anything by it. Liar.
Liabilities.
Yeah. After that, she reached out to Lori several times, but Lori didn't respond. She also reached out after Tammy was murdered, but Lori didn't respond. She admitted she had gone to Dilemmas once before these prayer meetings with Melanie Pulowski, Melanie Gibb, and her friend Nicole. She also says she met Serena through Lori. She also heard from her sister in Salem that Chad told someone from church Lori had got a lot of money from Charles's death, and they have a house in Hawaii now.
Oh, boy.
Yep. Do you want to pick this one up?
Yeah. So the Nicole Earl interview, April 15th of 2020, she was a longtime friend of Lori and Charles, and she actually ranked high on Chad and Lori's trusted people scale. She was right below Gibb and just above Melanice. She had met Lori at church around 10 years ago and last saw Lori in person at the end of July, which was after Charles's murder in 2019. Lori told her the usual story that we've all heard regurgitated about the ball bat and all that. She said she knew Alex, but not too well. She had met him at JJ's birthday party, and she also knows Lori's parents and her sister. She remembers the drama when the purse incident happened where Charles took the purse from Lori. And when asked if she heard Lori talk about things outside of the scope of the LDS religion, she said she had heard her talk about stuff like that. She also had heard Lori say Charles was possessed. And Detective Moffat tells her of an email between Chad and Lori, and he says she was included in that. She looks at it and says she knows some of the people, such as Jason Mao. She never met Chad, but Lori gave her Chad's book series, and she read a bit of the first book, but realized it wasn't for her. And she never attended any of those preparing to people conferences. She knows Lori and Chad met at a conference. She didn't hear Lori talk much about Chad until March or April of 2019, but she said it was not in any detail about their relationship. Nicole also knew Gibb as well. So in March of 2019, when Lori started talking about things outside the LDS church and Nicole started distancing herself from Lori, she said it was easy to do because shortly after that, Lori was back in Texas and there was back and forth texting. She came back in June for JJ to go to school and they got together, and she said Lori was just talking crazy religious stuff. So in July, Nicole was out of town and her husband called and told her that Charles had died. They didn't know what happened, so she sent a couple of messages asking if they were all okay. A couple of days later, Lori got back in touch with her, and Lori said she wanted to get together. So Nicole met her a couple of days later, and she said she let...
Sorry.
Oh.
Now we need to stop for our sponsor.
Oh, yes, we do.
So our next sponsor has a product that is What the World Good. I started taking AG1 because I wanted to focus on getting on a healthy daily routine.
Yeah, and it's one of the best things. Athletic Greens uses the best of the best products based on the latest science with constant product iterations and third-party testing.
With AG1, I am able to focus on bettering my gut health, which is important to me. With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food-sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging.
That's right. AG1 is a small micro habit with big benefits. It's one thing you can do every single day to take care of yourself. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health.
So to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/whattheworld. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/whattheworld to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
All right. So let's get back to it. So we were talking about Nicole had met up with Lori shortly after Charles was murdered, and she let Lori talk. And Nicole said she was in shock and it just made her sad. She knows Charles's sons and Tylee and JJ. And when asked if she ever saw Charles mad, she said no, but they were always in a social setting. Lori shared things with her, but she said those were her words, but never anything about physical abuse. And Nicole said he was intense and that made him a really good businessman. She last texted Lori in December saying she was praying for her, but never got a response back.
So now we're going to jump to the Serena interview. Serena met Lori through Jason Mao. She met Jason doing youth functions together. Jason introduced her to Melanie Gibb in 2018, and they became instant friends. Melanie invited Serena to a Preparing a People conference in November of 2018, and she went. This was the conference where everyone stayed at Lori's house. She says Chad stayed that weekend also. If you remember through those text messages, they talk about Serena a lot.
They do, yeah.
Serena helped everyone set up for the conference, and they spent a lot of time talking. She didn't see any signs of an affair with Chad and Lori. She went to another Preparing a People conference in Idaho in February of 2019. Chad was there, but she didn't think Lori was. In March, she came to Arizona for a girls' weekend, and we saw that in text.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when she met Nicole and Christina. This was the second time she had met Lori in person, but they had talked in text since meeting in 2018. She did 2 podcast episodes with Lori when visiting. She saw things right away that were outside the scope of the LDS religion, but didn't become concerned until around March when Lori started talking about not repenting. Around the same time, Lori took her out of the loop.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
So Lori said she was a dark spirit. And Serena became sick, and Lori wanted Zulema to help her through it, but Lori stopped communicating with her. And she met Zulema at the first Preparing a People conference, and they became close and talked often. But Serena didn't know Lori said she was evil until Melanie Gibb told her. She only interacted with Lori in person around 3 or 4 times and did have lunch with Lori and Alex over the summer. She had previously met Alex at a conference, but she said nothing stood out about him to her. She was also shown the James and Elena paper and said they had all told her the stuff in the document in March when she was in Arizona. We'll get to all that later. Some of it's kind of hard to understand, but all this kind of hard to understand, to be honest. Serena said Lori had told her Charles was a zombie and she needed help casting the entity out, but never talked about killing the body. She heard the typical story of what happened to Charles from Lori. Ultimately, Lori decides she's a dark person when she asked too many questions.
Yeah, and I think we saw all that. You saw that transcribed through texting.
Yeah.
They would ask how she was,
Mm-hmm.
and all that stuff. You think this is a good place to stop since we finished with that one?
Yeah, that's fine. We can stop there.
More of the other stuff, but it's just crazy to see these relationships. It's weird to know what we know now through the text messages that we did.
Mm-hmm.
And then now you're seeing and hearing from the people that were discussing on the text messages.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing of going through all this stuff again, watching these interviews is you pick up little nuggets that we didn't know. And there have been 2 or 3 times where I'm like, wow, I don't remember hearing that, but it's big news. And I think that's the cool thing about what we're doing is, and I actually was talking to Kresha. I hopped on her live for just about 10 minutes tonight. And, we were just talking about how going through all this stuff kind of from beginning to where we are today, it's mind blowing every time because not only just, obviously the tragedy of all the dead bodies that are around these people, but the number of people that at some point, whether it's for a month or a year, bought into this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, it just amazes me. And I mean, I wouldn't look at Chad and think he would be like that influential. But I guess if you're floating around with alternative religious ideas and then you find somebody you think's like a prophet, then I mean, look, cults are as old as time. I mean, Jim Jones got 1,000 people drink cyanide. You know what I'm saying?
And a lot of times it's people just wanting to fit in somewhere, and they may not fit in certain situations.
Right.
Some people are not social people, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Some people are a little more, standoffish and quiet, and that's okay.
Right.
But when they start hearing these things, and we know that they just kept telling Zulema what a goddess she was and all this stuff. So you're hearing all that, you're going to do and kind of,
It's intoxicating to somebody who may not have a lot of self-esteem.
Yeah.
Finally, you found your people.
Yeah.
I tell my kids this all the time. I'm like, people may tell you the greatest thing ever, but their actions are where you decide whether or not you hang out with them. You know what I mean?
Yep.
This group was just all about, pain and suffering. And it's just amazing. We have so far to go with this series, guys. I mean, I think I have 600 pages of research that I'm not even done with. In fact, today I was panicking thinking I wouldn't get some of this stuff in because I had it at the end. And then I thought it makes more sense to sort of hear their side in the beginning before we get down this timeline and then they come into play.
Yeah.
So it's just constant. But so we'll be back tomorrow with another. I'm later on going to hop on and update Alec Murdaugh, who we expect murder charges for Maggie and Paul to drop this week, according to Fitz News. It's going to the grand jury Thursday. And then got a little update about Casey White, who was on the run with Vicky White, the escaped convict. Also some new Caitlin Armstrong news. So you've got something to do. I'm going to hop on and do that a little later. And then tomorrow we'll be back at you with another full episode of this. We'll keep going down this timeline. Hope you guys have a great night.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Fargo, the new virtual assistant from Wells Fargo, makes banking faster and easier. Like this.
Fargo, what's my checking account routing number?
And this.
Fargo, turn off my debit card.
And this.
Fargo, what did I spend on groceries last month?
And that's just the beginning. Do you, Fargo? You can. In the Wells Fargo mobile app. Learn more at wellsfargo.com/getfargo.
Terms and conditions apply. Your mobile carrier's availability and message and data rates may apply. Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.